You're listening to Villa of Hope Radio on the WYSL stations.
Villa of Hope is in this with you. Fear of COVID-19 and uncertainty about the future creates a need for many people to get more support from their community. For many, things like not knowing how you can access childcare so you can go to work, wondering if you can go to work, and not being able to pick up the groceries you need because of empty shelves can cause anxiety and stress. This is serious. Talk to someone. Call 1-833-993-HOPE.
Welcome back to the Villa of Hope radio show. It's our very first Villa of Hope radio show here on the WYSL stations. This is J.C. DeLass. We're so happy to have Christina Gullah, the president and CEO of Villa of Hope, with us on the line, along with Gerianne Puskas, who is the chief advancement officer also at the Villa of Hope. And Christina, 9 years now in your current role as president and CEO, I know you have seen a ton of changes, and there's probably more coming too, but maybe highlight a few of those that really stick out to you in what's happened in the 9 years under your watch.
So I think, the biggest transformation is to take an organization that has a tremendous program model change that needs to happen and to shepherd that through in a way where you're continuing programs. You're bringing some programs down, you're starting to downsize, and then you're also expanding into complete new program areas. To be on the other side of that 9 years later, I think is a pretty tremendous timeline to do that in. And so I'm really proud of that. And I'm also really proud of the culture that this agency has today. And it is one that's embedded in our sanctuary model, which is our trauma model that we're certified in. We're the only certified trauma organization in the Rochester area. And that sanctuary model is both a trauma model to work with the people that we serve, but it's also an organizational change model, and that has served us really well. It is foundationally based in things like open communication, democracy, social responsibility, nonviolence, and we've really embedded those throughout our organization. And I have to say, I think that has made a difference in shepherding through such a transformation at this organization, because communication is so important, and I can see it really tremendously serving us well now during this crisis.
Christina, it seems to me that, again, one of your daily challenges, and I know you're working toward this, is really to try and show people how you're different, because there are a lot of wonderful organizations in this Rochester area, and maybe each one does a little bit something that the other one does, but maybe not exactly the same. You know what I mean? So it's kind of hard to figure out, well, people that are driving in their cars right now, they might say to themselves, well, why is Villa of Hope different than any one of those other really great organizations that does things for people in our community? And I know that's for you. That's that daily challenge to let people know, hey, this is who we are, and this is who we serve, and this is why we're different and why we're so important.
Absolutely. I think the difference is, we've made some really key decisions on not doing every program that we were doing before. And if somebody else in the community is doing it and doing it well, and the need is filled, then we don't need to be doing that. What our focus is in our Vision 2030 is to really start impacting those social foundations of health for people. It is key in research that tells us where people live, work, play, eat, and go to school makes a difference on how their social well-being is, and then what that means for their physical health long term. So for us, we are strategically really paying attention to, and will focus on education, work-based learning, behavioral health, and care coordination. That doesn't mean that our other programs don't support those programs, but we're really focused on our mission and vision being through programming that we find ourselves to be experts in, and then embedding that trauma-informed practice of sanctuary in each of those areas.
Christina, you were talking earlier about your clients, the people that you serve. How does that fit in with Vision 2030 that you just outlined, those 4 areas of expertise? Are you looking to kind of educate people and have them move on, or is it really more of an ongoing type service for people that could take on years and years perhaps? Yeah,
that's a great question too. So, and I think it varies depending on the individualized approach and what people need on an individual basis. So I can give you a couple of examples. A couple of our older youth that were here through the Raise the Age law that changed. So instead of actually going to prison for a nonviolent offense, they were able to come here to a program and receive treatment, clinical treatment, as well as work-based learning. This has completely changed the lives of these young men. They were probably on the track of the prison pipeline numbers, and in being here, they had an opportunity to address the trauma that has happened in their lives and to gain work experience. We have had a lot of success in after that 12-week program. We have not seen any incidents. They have finished out their program here, and they have moved on. Some of them, I still see them come back to campus because they can't stay away, and that's fine because we're going to be here for support for them through the job coach or through care coordination as long as they need. And there's others who leave us and they're ready to fly, and they need very little from us.
Gerianne Puskas, also the Chief Advancement Officer there at Villa of Hope. I want to bring you in only in the sense that we're going to talk more about raising money in our last segment, but I think Christina brought up a really good point there about how the money that you're helping to kind of find out there in the community, look how important it is because you're making a difference in that one person's life who could have ended up going to prison or wherever. And now you've helped kind of get them on the right path through the services of the Villa of Hope. That's really got to help you tell your story when you're out there in front of prospective donors.
It absolutely does. I think, when we look at how does this impact our community as a whole, how do some of these things impact, my finances, how I live in my community. And we look at the story that Chris was telling, a young man who came to us, and his thought in his mind was, when am I going to go to prison? That was his future focus, and to have him leave here and go into an apartment with a job and thinking to himself, what do I want to do with my future? Because now I can go to school and I'm working and I have my own place. That one young person alone, the change in his life over the span of a few months, less than a year, that investment is saving probably $350,000 a year in tax dollars that would have been spent had he gone to prison. Times how many years he would have been there. Now he's a productive member of society. He's working, and he's actually looking at how can he get involved with his community and give back what he's been given. So, it's such a huge transformation for our young people to have here or in our community and adults who are going through our clinic, that the time that we have with them is so important, and it's such a great investment because we're really focused on making sure that we are making a stronger community here in Rochester.
And that's really the challenge, too, isn't it, Gerianne? The funding and finding those pots of money wherever they may be in order to be able to continue to do what you do because through the state and some of those other sources, the future really is unknown right now.
Well, if you ask any fundraiser, it's like that often, but I think right now and today, it's really, really highlighted more than ever. What's going to be cut in next year's budget, we don't know. So as fundraisers and as organizations, we have to build relationships in our community in order to make sure that these programs can go on, for the future because our community needs that investment, and we need to have these programs here in order to do that. And I think people understand that the future really does start here and are willing to make that investment.
We've got Christina Gullo is with us as well, the president and CEO of the Villa of Hope. And Christina, beyond funding, what are some of those other challenges that are right at the top of your list right now?
Well, today.
It's a pretty long list, isn't it?
Right? Today, right now, I'm just trying to get some PPE equipment so that our staff have masks. And I think the challenge that that's on my mind, if we weren't in the middle of this crisis, what normally we're working on is the fact that human services, for years used to be able to get funding based mostly on a contract, and then it's how many lives you touch, how many people you've served. And it's a very different world today. And I agree that it should be, because there are limited resources, and the resources that are out there should go to the organizations that can prove the impact that they're making, and how those dollars are being used to make a difference in the community or in the state. So for us, it's really about making this move to figuring out how are we going to actually have data points that show that we've moved the needle on those social foundations, and could we also even take it a step further, which is pretty audacious, to think about, could we prove that it made a difference in their life expectancy? That's going to take some technology on our part that we're going to need a lot of enhancements for in order to run our own data analytics, project managers that we need to have here, a very different environment. And I think the largest challenge that I see with that is that the state caps the amount of administrative overhead an agency can have. So we can't have more than 15%, yet in order to be able to prove the metrics and to have the compliance and the quality and the performance improvement pieces that any organization would need, for-profit or not-for-profit, to do this, our hands get tied in many respects. So it's figuring out how to work around some of those barriers, because the difference is going to be our ability to tell our story, but our story that is both the good feeling story, but then the data to back it up.
Christine, I would imagine staffing is an ongoing challenge for you too. Not only finding those good people that you need, but you got to find a way to keep them too.
Oh my goodness. That is, workforce is probably at the top of our list that we talk about all the time. And, I think what we hear, obviously, is that our culture is definitely a great selling piece and a differentiator for our staff. However, the challenge, again, that we have is due to the lack of funding, or the more limited funding that we get that maybe the healthcare organizations do not, the difference becomes what the level of pay is. And although somebody may not want to leave here, it's hard to not go to the hospital system where they can make more money.
And that's the trick, isn't it? I mean, is to kind of find that balance between could they find more money somewhere else or not, versus the personal fulfillment that they get out of being a part of Villa of Hope. And Christina and Gerianne, I know you both can talk about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I can tell you, having seen a lot of our staff here working, this past year, New York State made the investment in our Raise the Age True North program, and part of that program was to make sure that we were able to get people who had higher degrees and more experience, and the investment was there to back that up. And what we're seeing on the back end of that is we're seeing the outcomes for that. We're seeing the data to prove that investment is worth it. The story of the young man that I told you earlier and that Chris told you, that is a result of that investment. So that's why sometimes it's really important. We're trying to get to a place, and fundraising is so important, to augment what we get right now. The fundraising helps us to get where we can help our employees and invest in them so that we can then turn around and invest in our youth.
take COVID-19 out of the picture here, Christina. I know we'd all love to do that right about now. We're just going to push that aside, pretend it's not even happening. Where do you see things going for the organization in the next, shoot for 5 years or 10 years? Do you see drastic changes, or are you on the path that you want to be right now, and it may be more of just staying the course?
So I don't think that we'll see drastic changes in those 4 program areas that I talked about, the education, behavioral health, care coordination, and work-based learning. I do see us continuing to really grow in each of those areas and expand our expertise. Where I do see that probably in looking 10 years ahead is the either formal or informal partnerships and collaborations that we're going to end up having with either other organizations or with the healthcare organizations. An example I can give you is right now we're having some great conversations with Trillium, who provides, the physical health component. That is not our expertise. So how can we better partner with them so that we can get our clients the physical health that they need? And then how can we be helpful to Trillium on the behavioral health side? I think more and more of those conversations need to happen. I think there needs to be more mergers and acquisitions that happen in this community in order for human services to survive and be able to continue what they're doing. And I know that that's a difficult conversation for a lot of people to have.
Well, I think you make a really good point there that there's so many people that unfortunately it seems like they're all kind of going for that same dollar. And wouldn't they have more success if they partnered up or teamed up in some way? And I know that's easier said than done, I know, because you got a lot of different people and competing perspectives. But it does seem like that may be what we could see more of here in the next 5, 10 or more years.
That's really what needs to be happening now.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what I see, and this is my perspective, is that leaders of organizations have a difficult time in thinking about actually, letting that go, or they think, they're going to lose what their organization is. And then if it's not the leader, oftentimes it's the board of directors.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, we really have to be very strategic, and we have to think about this community and the why behind that, and not about our individual agencies. And that's why we're all here. That's supposed to be the job of the leaders, and that's supposed to be the fiduciary responsibility of the boards of directors. And so I just make a call out that, if those conversations are not happening, they should be happening at every boardroom right now, because otherwise what's going to end up happening is that the state will just come in and do closures, mm-hmm. or they'll tell you who you need to partner with, or you'll have a small organization that can't fiscally survive through COVID-19 and ends up needing to close. So wouldn't we be better if we could proactively start planning these pieces now?
Yeah, I like where you're going with it. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, going to learn a little bit more about the annual giving opportunities, some of the other fundraising that goes on for Villa of Hope. You're listening to the Villa of Hope radio show on the WYSL stations.